Wash the image from my eyes. Dirty streets and hungry people. Drink the water, dry your eyes. First one look at the reflections. Listen to the music made. Drinking water's ease the mind. Thoughts of you begin to fade.
Get yourself together before it's too late.
From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor
What the fuck? What the fuck? Is that you, Dave? Oh, Jesus Christ. Are you echoing there, fellow?
Yes.
All right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry. We've been trying to get this echo right, and I haven't talked to Dave really for a week, but it really comes down to two things.
It's been the best week of my life.
Okay, well, I have talked to the fellows at ECAM, and, you know, it's either... Whoa!
Oh, yeah, you're an expert. God, I'm so glad I choose to spend my...
No, that was Ron's fault. She probably turned mine off.
Oh, yeah, blame your wife.
I'm serious. She's got the same program that I have. But I won't say anything. So anyway, it could be the echo cancellation. They said that you have to do something in the preferences there. There is one other possibility. They said that there was some type of issue when the guest host... there was some type of virus from a website called Pornhub. If the guest host clicks on NastyCam 3, 4, or 6, it could affect their sound from their microphone, and it might affect our ability to broadcast on eCam. But that wouldn't be you, Dave, would it?
No. No.
It's got to be that. Or the other. I don't know.
Brian.
No.
All I know is I go out around the world on this system, have no problems. Every Saturday night, you cause problems.
I don't know. I really,
you know what?
No, we had no problem 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and all of a sudden you're doing slow talk.
No, here's what happens. I finally decided what the problem is. You are to running a webcast what Lauren Boebert is to government.
Or to GED. Apparently she had to take it 3 times.
Well, see, you better hope there's never a test on eCam. What are you doing? You eating borscht again?
No.
What are you doing?
This is some chai tea.
Shy
Well,
tea.
and I normally don't like drinking in front of the guests here, folks, but my throat gets dry and bad things happen. So,
Oh, tell me about it. Every time I hook up with you, ladies and gentlemen, I'll work through it because I'm a professional. I think you should write angry letters to Brian. Well, not letters. He can't read that well. But send him a little note and say something endearing like, you suck, or learn to use your equipment, or how come Dave does so well everywhere else, except when he's hooked up with you.
well,
Things like that.
be very careful what you say tonight, Dave, because I believe we're being hacked by Vova Putin. And
Oh, that's your boy.
mm-hmm. Yeah, real sad event going on over there, Dave. And yeah, that's going to be the topic tonight, folks. There's really no way of getting around it. It's Ukraine. It's going into the fourth week, I believe, Monday or Sunday. And, are we at in the verge of World War III? We know what's happening to Ukraine. It looks like Kiev is going to have a big battle over the next couple of days. As I have just told Dave, what's going on over there? I keep hearing things. Is that you, Dave? There's
No.
a ghost to the machine here. Yeah, it looks like Russia is warning us because they want to knock out those deliveries of weapons to the Ukrainian army. And apparently they're being really, really effective. And it's not just the weapons, it's the food. So I think they're doing the right thing. Dave, what do you think?
Well,
We're doing the right thing.
We are doing the right thing. What we don't know and have enough intelligence about, and I don't mean intelligence like you lack, I'm talking about the intelligence of agents and let us know. So yeah, right. Putin just upped the ante a little bit, talking about the weapons. But the first thing he did, if you remember, when he came out, he said, if anybody really opposes us, and this is a quote, you would face consequences greater than any you have faced in history. And that was followed up a few days later. He put his nuclear forces on special combat readiness. And basically that just means a heightened state of alert and be prepared to use them. Now, we know those three facts, right? What we don't know, Brian, is why. All right. One possibility is he's keeping us and the West, kind of off guard, saying with just a threat, don't get too involved or we'll use these. A second possibility, according to our best estimate of how he views war and how many in Russia, they do not have the same view we have. We use our nuclear weapons kind of as a deterrent, but they look at them as something viable on the battlefield in terms of a weapon to use. So that would mean that he might use them. And then the third possibility is he would use them out of desperation or anger or madness. Mm-hmm. Now, certainly, as the Estonians fought back in World War II, a little bit more than they thought, but Hitler still went in. We've got the Ukraine becoming international heroes everywhere in the West, right?
Right.
And now that may or may not bother him, but I'm sure losing bothers him. So,
and you believe he is losing right now, and generally losing in the sense that,
well, you got okay. Villanova, where I went to college, just won the Big East tournament right before we went on. But that was kind of expected, or could have happened. But they were in one of the greatest upsets in the finals of the NCAA when they defeated Georgetown, right? So because they weren't expected to. Georgetown was this powerhouse. So what does that have to do with Ukraine and Russia? Russia's supposed to be a powerhouse, right? 190,000, right, troops,
including
surrounding.
apparently 16,000 Syrian troops and a lot of Chechens. Who knows how many thousands of Chechens there are?
Right.
Now, of course, we haven't counted the
Yeah.
number of Europeans and North Americans that have come over there also.
And they're going also more and more. However, I think Putin decided, for whatever reason, it was time. And I don't think he'd go in if he thought he couldn't win, right? Why would you do that? Now suddenly they're bogged down. Some is bad war making. They've got tanks that don't have fuel. They can't get their supply lines in.
And apparently, it looks like their aircraft are staying away from Ukraine proper, and they're shooting the missiles from the Russian border because it looks like those Stingers and those Javelins are doing the job. I mean, they really are. So maybe it was best not to have those planes. I mean, what's the sense if they're going to get shot down?
On that. I mean, I don't know why. I just know the Pentagon really slammed that, said no. So whatever.
And you can only trust them in that sense. I mean, why send planes over if they're going to get shot down? If you can, send some mobile defense systems. Look, neither of us are experts, but it seems to be doing well the way they're doing it right now, considering the mismatch.
You have to look at Putin as a bully, okay? And bullies have certain characteristics in common. Whether they're president of the United States, a high school senior picking on a freshman,
right,
or Putin picking on a country that he wants. Now, what does all that mean? So we've kind of dealt with desperation.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he's going to do it out of desperation, he's on desperate lane right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, anger. I don't know. It doesn't seem like he gets angry. We don't know. What do you mean? He doesn't look angry, right? He doesn't look like anything.
Well, I think you have to look at what he does and how he reacts to show his real anger.
Right. And if you're going to look at a bully, they expect to win and get angry when they don't. Then the one that gives me the most pause for concern is madness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and some of the experts, again, nobody's ever unified, but there are a number of people saying that something's different about Putin. Something's wrong,
mm-hmm.
right? Dementia, who knows what. I want to make this stand for whatever. So, if you play the math, there's basically three possibilities, with the third possibility having three possibilities built into it. But we'll just say it's one. 2/3 of those, number two and number three, don't bode well for not us getting involved in some way in a nuclear confrontation.
And aren't the subs the real problem anyway? I mean, even if you could knock them out, the subs, you can't knock them out. It's very hard.
Well,
you would have 8 minutes, supposedly 8 minutes warning, and that's it. And then we're done.
Yeah. And of course, then the question is, do we, as a country, allow any other country to be the site of use of nuclear weapons? Or do we say, well, it's not a NATO country. It was once part of Russia. Or do we just say, no, this is it? Now, Putin is a threat to America. And you have to wonder, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Trump's involvement in this, he does actually have a direct bearing on what Putin's doing now. But you look at this situation, is Putin acting differently because Joe Biden is president and Donald Trump isn't? And the answer to that is yes, of course. Of course. There seems to be very serious indication that Putin hated Hillary Clinton. And that was
right.
One,
And Obama.
Not the main, but one of the reasons that he got behind Trump. He probably would have been behind any GOP candidate, but of course, Trump being either who he is or Trump being who he is, there's no other answer. He welcomed any time to hang with his big brother. Right? So, Brian, I'm going to refer to you. And like you point out, neither one of us are experts. So I'm the American, just trying to check it out here. And you spent time in Russia. You know something about the Russian psyche. I believe, and we've talked about on this show, that it's a little different than the Western psyche. Certainly different than the American psyche. So what do you see, Brian, as you sit here tonight?
Well, and I said this last week, Dave, and we discussed this. A friend of mine from Russia told me, you have to understand, Brian, is that there is a Russian mentality and there is an American mentality, and they are different. They are completely different. So for me to even, yes, don't forget, I was an American who was in Russia many times, not for any long period of time. So I don't want anybody to think that I was living there or anything but being either a tourist or there on a couple of days of business. But you get the sense, and it goes back historically, it gives you the sense that here you have a country that's used to authoritarian rule. And even in who knows if the polls are correct, but what we are receiving from polls in Russia, that 58% of the people support Putin, 23% are against, and the rest are, well, you don't know. You have one network, one Fox there. And again, the parallels between Fox and Russia 24 are, or Channel 1, whatever you call it, it's an exact match. And I see them as Trumpers, these people who like Putin. And I know some who are for him, some who are against him. And I don't talk with them anymore in terms of politics if they're for Putin. But I have the same dismal, negative thought pattern when it comes to Russia, because they remind me of the Trumpers that we speak of. How do we expect them to get it right if our friends and our neighbors, or our past friends and past neighbors, can't get it right? Dave, it's so damn frustrating. We can talk, and we will talk all about, I have some videos for us and all that kind of stuff prepared. But Dave, you mentioned, rock in a hard place or something like that last week. I don't know where it goes. I mean, really, I don't know where it goes. Unless, again, Israel, the prime minister went there.
Right.
He wanted to be a go-between. That didn't work. There's really now you can't have Biden as a go-between. You can't have Trump as, Trump. You can't, just thinking Biden, there's no go-between.
Stop there for...
Okay, we'll stop there. Go ahead.
No, you did a slip, you thought. But what if Trump... It's not going to happen.
Oh, my. I don't know. Are you going to go there?
I'm going to go there.
All right. I'm going to put you
Trump
on...
wakes up one morning and says, you know what?
Oh, my God. I know. Oh, my God.
Maybe
Okay, go ahead.
I did do something wrong. Maybe I should call my friend, Mr. Putin, and talk to him. Now, what we don't know is that a good thing or a bad thing, right? I don't know. As soon as he gets on the phone, the bombs might start falling. But that just crossed my mind when he said, because it does sound ludicrous on the face of it. But he certainly is an American.
Could you imagine Putin setting something up where he sends Trump over there to create fucking fear over here and make him look like a hero. I mean, I know that's where I think you're going with this thing.
Well, a couple
I would
different
hate to
ways.
think that would happen.
Well, either one is not. Look, here's the thing with Trump, and we'll put Putin on the other side. I can't tell you what Trump is going to do at any given time because he's completely erratic and a man of the moment. I just know it's going to be bad, right? I know less about Putin, so I don't know what he's going to do. So I don't think you can rule out any possibility between those two. I think you can say that Joe Biden will do everything he can to keep America out of a war, both as the president of the United States and as a father who knows what it's like to have a child in the military. Now, so I think there's, could Trump turn out to be a real hero and broker some kind of deal? 1%,
But how does he
2%?
actually broker unless he just brokers the plan of Putin?
I don't know, bro. I mean, I'm not saying what happened.
I mean,
But the other would
you're
be
thinking
that-
outside the box, and I get that.
No,
That would
the other
be
thing would be
I mean, that would be
that,
like nothing
let's
we've
appro-
ever seen.
And you got to remember too, Brian, how much does Putin know about America?
Right. Well, that's the
Right?
key.
Because, and that's good and bad, just like we're doing with him. Does he believe that it was false accusations made against Trump the whole time? That Donald Trump won the election? That Donald Trump is entitled to be the president of the United States? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's one for you. Putin thinks that Trump's pretty popular in America. Just say he does. And somehow they do take over the Ukraine, and he installs Mr. Trump as president of the Ukraine. Now, that's a joke.
Right.
No, it's not. It's a joke that Putin would do it. It's not a joke that Donald Trump would accept it. If he, I wouldn't rule out the fact that if Putin said, I set you up as president of this country, it's called the Ukraine.
I don't think that would happen. I mean, I know what you're saying, but I was just thinking in terms he settles a truce and comes off as a conquering hero.
It could, well, I don't think he has the capability of doing a truce. But I do think, well, I'm joking about that. Donald Trump doesn't care what he's ruler of, does he really?
But Putin would have to have some gain out of it, some big gain. You don't
think he would rather have Donald Trump in charge?
Right. Well, he wouldn't.
He wouldn't what?
He wouldn't want to be president of the Ukraine. He wants to be president of the United States. That's for sure.
Do you really think so?
I think he would like to control the shysterism going on in Eastern Europe.
What's to say he can't set up shop there and then come back here? And he doesn't live in reality, Brian.
Does he have Trump somehow do his real estate shit? I mean, I didn't want to go there. I just don't want to go there. I think that this is so serious that I think Putin is more concerned with the immediate situation than dreaming up something about Trump, unless he were actually really, really, geographically losing, which hasn't happened.
Well, the other thing is,
I get what you're saying. There could be some role for Trump.
No. It was more to talk about the personalities. Right. Donald Trump, whom we don't know, but kind of do know that he'll do anything. And Putin, whom we don't know, and we don't know what he's going to do. At least with Trump, you pretty much have an idea of what he's going to do.
Right now, he's not a negotiator. He's not a diplomat. He can't.
No, I didn't mean that.
Right.
Well, he could be whatever he wants.
He's just a loudmouth and just says anything.
That. But again, Brian, you're approaching this from a logical stance. Now, what is more disconcerting is I think the economic sanctions, great. Keep them coming, up them, up them, up them. Problem. China, India, Africa, and a few Arab countries can take everything that Russia was exporting, and Russia doesn't lose that much. Would you agree?
Say that one again. I want to hear that again.
Okay. I'll do the whole thing again, but slowly now. Yes, the economic sanctions are the way to go. However, their effectiveness will be somewhat limited because if you look at China, India, selected Arab countries,
right,
and African country, can they pick up the slack?
or do countries like Kazakhstan act as like a third party, and they start buying BMWs and Mercedes-Benz and Apple, and then ship them to Russia from there? That's what used to happen, like with the black markets.
Right.
Now that I would worry about. I don't know how much we can do about that,
Well,
but I know what you're saying.
It's like the Iron Curtain.
Still makes it difficult, even if they do that, Dave. It requires a lot more process to happen.
I'm not saying it doesn't, but there are people who think, oh no, we're going to win with this economic sanctions. I think it's the right thing to do. I think you just continue to up it, disregard Putin's threats.
And you also would agree the armaments,
but
upping the armaments to them, just keep giving them.
Absolutely.
Right.
Now you got to look at it from the other side. If we send those, we are Putin's enemy, which we are and should be, right?
Right.
But there's always that. They always that. What do they want? The plausibility of deniability.
Yeah,
Well, they
something
do
like that.
plausibility of deniability here. You might as well put the U.S. flag on them and let them go. Again, a rational person, a person kind of steeped in Western values, would see a difference between American military using those weapons and sending those weapons to Ukrainians to use. Does Putin see it that way? I don't know.
Right. But I'll say this: the danger is so great. I think we both can agree. The danger is so great, and this is why. And this is not to be an attack on any other channels, and I really mean this. Why? For example, this channel was started, ladies and gentlemen, because both Dave and I are very pro-environment. I had videos on YouTube for tens of years on 2005 or 2007, but this is immediate. This could end us in a week, and there's no doubt it could happen. And I know climate change is really, really the biggest issue aside from this immediate issue now, because this can kill us so quickly. And we might get the winter we want, but it would be a nuclear winter. But this situation here, Dave, I just personally don't see any way out except some type of really, really cold war, because the Russians eventually will take over unless again we can keep giving the super this or that can equalize everything, or becomes so difficult for the Russians that the Russians eventually do complain.
You used an interesting term there, the Cold War, and that takes us from 45 to 1980s, right?
Can we just address this? Can I just address this one really quickly?
Oh, sure.
Veg, the Pentagon said that there's a lot of problems with this. Okay, they said that they still had to be refitted, and they said even if they got them over the border, which they could do, the MiG-29s aren't that effective, number one. And they said that the SAM missiles, the SAM 400, whatever, the S-400s, will knock them out. They'll knock them out. They say might be marginally helpful for a thing here or there. But they said what they're doing, because of the situation, it's just better that we give them intelligence and we handle things with stingers. Just keep doing it this way, because no matter what we do, they still have the air power. And so they said that the MiG-29s, they're just not going to do it. And Poland made a big mistake by, announcing this before having consultation with the other members. Plus, it put us on the spot because they were going to deliver them to Germany, and then there was a going backwards with them, and then we have to deliver them to the UK. So, I think that in this case, at least from what was explained, this was the right move. And a lot of the retired generals that were being interviewed said the same thing. And I have some interviews too that I'll be posting, maybe not specifically about that, but that it seems very, very plausible that the MiG-29s are not what you want to deal with. These guys are going to be shot down. They're going to be shot down.
I think what you're addressing here, I had that same question, Veg, and I explored it, and I feel that is the right thing to, given what I know, not doing it. But here's why. Almost all of us, Brian, think of the Cold War if we were alive then, right? And that was possible to do it that way then. I'm going to suggest it's not now.
Right, not now.
Not anymore. And we see some of the reasons unfolding here. Number one, this is the first conflict of its type fought with full-fledged social media involved. Now, do you realize if the GPS is working, every soldier can find out where to go on both sides, right? They've never had that kind of thing before. All right. You've got the false information flowing from Russia
Absolutely.
to China being amplified, and then coming back to our traitorous news, Fox, OAN, and Newsmax.
And by the way, China, they were the ones that were pushing this idea that Ukraine and the United States were working on a chemical factory, this and that, with chemical weapons. And they say that's payback for Trump. And here's where you can blame Trump, for Trump blaming the Chinese on purposely putting out the virus.
I'm the last person to give any credit to Donald Trump, because usually he doesn't deserve it. But
right.
Maybe in this one case, not the way he presented it in China and all that, but if you've seen the most recent, what am I trying to say? I hate to say studies, but the most recent thinking, they're back to saying that this came out of those wet markets in Wuhan. So,
right.
To say it didn't come out of China, I think is
no, but he was
naive.
specifically, they were talking about these labs.
I know
and that wasn't right.
Well, okay. One theory that I've seen, it kind of makes sense, is that we know that they experiment on animals in those labs. And it's been about as closely verified, without seeing the invoices, that some of these animals, after being there at the labs, were sold to the wet markets and then in turn sold to others. I don't know. Do I think that China deliberately released that? No, of course not. But they have to own up. They may have to own up that it happened in our country.
But for Trump to just say that without any real evidence, that's the problem.
You just saw what he said about this. He said, let's disguise planes as Chinese, bomb the Russians, and they won't know, and they'll go to war with each other. This is a former president of the United States suggesting something that even a third grader should realize is not going to happen.
Right. They may have biolabs, Trev, but they're not going to, at least as far as I know, given the United States support, they're not going to use chemical weapons.
But
because they're going to lose anyway if they do that.
Well, wait a minute. Let's look at that. Do you think, and I don't know, do you think that they have even a very limited stock of bioweapons?
I don't know.
In the Ukraine. Yeah, we don't
know. I don't know.
I would assume that every country that has the ability, and the Ukraine had it, is doing some kind of testing, searching for it, right? If nothing else.
Right, but how would you deliver mass quantities of that unless it were some...
Well,
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I'm just saying.
No,
It just
right.
that seems like
Here's
they
the
would
thing.
concentrate on conventional weapons.
No, but here's the thing. Again, this is a new kind of war. So you've got 30,000 troops. I don't know, outside of Kiev. You need to get rid of those 30,000 troops, right? I mean, could you limit, just like they say the Soviet Union is really looking at those
But how can you
targeted
do it
nukes,
without
right?
killing your own population? And besides, the troops might even have gas masks. Your population won't.
Okay. What
I'm just saying. I don't know. Man, I could be wrong. I just
know.
don't see it.
Okay, and that's fine. I'm not saying it will, but again, what will Ukraine do, and what should they do if they know they're going to fall into
Well,
Russian
I would say
control?
this. Here's my logic, Dave.
Go ahead.
Let me put us on both screen here.
Yeah, okay.
My logic is, number one, in all cases with all military weapons, Ukraine is outnumbered.
Correct.
If you are the president of Ukraine, my intuition tells me that if I were to use chemical weapons as some last gap to hold out, that I know the Russians would definitely hit them back 8 times as hard, you know? And I just don't think that is something that they would do. It doesn't seem to make any sense for Ukraine to get involved in some type of chemical warfare.
I understand
with a
that.
country that's
But
like
would you
the
agree
beast of it.
there are, no, let me do an R, plural. There are some circumstances that may be worse than death. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. And what if, for the Ukrainian people, one of those things is being under Putin and Russian control?
Well, then you have a bullet. You know, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I really don't. You just fight.
And we're playing around. I'm not
Right.
not laughingly.
I mean, they're just here. They're heroes to me right now, as
Trev-
it is. They're heroes to you.
Trev-
they're heroes to
Trev-
me, and everybody
Trev
listens
is
to this.
actually right, except when you do have them and people are involved, all bets are off, right? The only way to avoid any use of biological weapons is not to have them.
Yeah,
That's all.
I mean,
And it's
that's what screwed my grandfather up in World War One. It wasn't just the mustard gas, but there's a long list of gases that they use, and then the American Expeditionary Forces. You know, it was the first time they used gas masks, so they put them in these huts with gas to get used to it. So shit's coming out of their nostrils, and he never recovered really. I mean, he could hardly work. It screwed up his nervous system. I mean, he did get, I don't know, like $25 a month. They gave him some small amount because he was injured, and others got it too. But that stuff was so nasty, and I don't care what kind of gas mask you have. I mean, to have to fight like that, it's like Johnny got your gun kind of thing.
isn't all war Johnny got your gun, just to different levels?
Well, for some people, it's Johnny got your gun. It depends on how bad it is for each person.
And the question becomes, which is age old, can you fight a war in any way moralistically? That's one. Two, even if you feel you can, and I think the United States has done a reasonable job on that, what if your opponent doesn't?
Right.
And what if these new things, not the weaponry, but the idea of social media, and we have 74 million Americans who I say have a problem with reality, and that was when they pulled the lever or whatever for Donald Trump, and that they've still got that. Well, is there a way so far, right? It seems like more of the Trumpublicans are coming to the anti-Russian side.
Right. Dave,
Yeah, go ahead.
finish your thought. Well, I wanted to show you, I have a lot of different videos. We haven't shown it yet. I want to at least get into the military aspect of it for a second. This is Jack Jacobs. He was on MSNBC. Let's just check this out for a second.
Sure.
And, see if we can't. I'm gonna have to put this on loopback. So you're already.
I bet you he doesn't. I bet you he doesn't echo like I do.
I bet you he doesn't, but you might hear him that way. All right, here we go, Dave.
Jack Jacobs, he's a Medal of Honor recipient and an NBC News military analyst. And Colonel, please break down the situation militarily right now on the ground in Ukraine.
Well, the Russians, having had little success initially, just walking into Ukraine because there was so much resistance from the Ukrainians, have now decided to conduct a scorched earth tactic. So they're relentlessly bombing and bombing civilians using indirect fire means, artillery, multiple rocket launchers, any way they possibly can in order to make life as difficult as possible for the Ukrainians. That is going to result almost undoubtedly in the complete isolation of the major cities, which will be laid siege, and then the link up of Russian forces that skirt the cities from the north and from the south in order to isolate the Ukrainian army in the east. The result is going to be more carnage. We have to remember that Putin is doing whatever he can in order to achieve his goal, which is to take over all of Ukraine. And though he was initially stymied because his forces were inept, they used the worst possible tactics, going down a main supply route without any security on either flank, which slowed them down because they were attacked by Ukrainians, and has now decided that it doesn't matter what he does as long as he achieves his objective, and that means brutal, unrelenting bombardment of the civilian population of Ukraine.
All right, so there we go. The brutal bombardment and isolation of the people of Ukraine, Dave. This is why I say it only gets worse, because the pictures get worse. You've got a refugee situation going on in Hungary, Romania, and obviously in Poland. We're giving a lot of money to them. We're probably going to see people come over here. It's the only thing we should do. We have to do it. So essentially, it has to get worse, right? It has to get worse. So Biden, as you said appropriately, you had it right. You said essentially he is a wartime president. And in a certain sense, that's where Trump's jealous.
Right now.
Right. Yeah, he is a wartime president. And it seems like the problem is that the Republicans are just politically trying to say we wouldn't be in this thing if Donald Trump, or if
that may well be true.
Right, but he would have given everything away, but the Republicans aren't going to.
Brian, you're looking at the fact. The one fact is we wouldn't be in there. Of course, Ukraine wouldn't be a free country.
Right, because all the shysters would still be in.
You don't think there's a large percentage of Americans today who, if they could get gas tomorrow for $1 rather than the $5 that it's headed up, say, help the Ukrainians. You don't believe that?
No, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
But I do know, I know one Ukraine, I won't get into her name or anything, who I can sense is already trying to take the Republican view, even though it's her own people. It's just like, wow.
I understand that.
How do you do that?
But here's the other thing, too. You mentioned something. We're a country that no longer says Lady Liberty, right, with your torch, we'll take you. When the Ukrainians come over here, does that change the equation? Right now, we love the Ukrainians. When I say, I'm not saying the good people, I'm saying the others, because of two things. They're over in Europe, and they're white. Did we do this in Yemen? Did we do it in African genocide countries? Did we?
And I don't think anybody's going to argue that. No, we didn't. But I think it's because it's Europe, and that we've hit on the old lines. It's not because of them being white. I think it's because.
Come on! Not us, not the government, but I'm saying people support that.
Yes, yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying that this
do you wonder-
situation
do-
is so important because of Europe. The whole thing goes up.
You know that. I know that. Do the truckers that were circulating around my city know that?
No, I can't make any
They don't.
calls on those type of people, Dave. No, you're right. I can't.
And
They're just
and
too
X
stupid.
number of them are in that 74 million. And we're now a country that changes on a dime, literally. So right now, the majority of Americans are, I think, supporting the right and justified cause, which is Ukraine should remain free and independent, and Russia is the aggressor,
Right.
with a totalitarian fascist dictator oligarch who's, as we've seen tonight, as people posted, does not care how many Russians die. Now, does that make a difference in the warfare? I think it does. If he doesn't care how many die, that's another bargaining chip off the table.
Well, would you agree that it seems like he's got a big ego for his country and for himself, and the idea that he would have been losing because he's always trying to project this power, but the power that he projects to his own people, Dave, and everybody out there. That's one thing I do know. In that propaganda,
Right.
you know, nobody can stop Russia. We have the strongest army. But they keep talking shit all over the place, and that is something he's got to make right because it's not that he wants to convince us. He wants to convince his people.
Well,
Because otherwise
I
it's
got
his
that.
head.
I got that. Ask yourself this question, comparing Trump and Putin as not leadership styles, but leaders of a country. I would say there's a lot of evidence that Donald Trump is the most cowardly man to ever inhabit 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And yet, many of his supporters do two things. They view him as powerful, and they view his successor, Biden, as completely wimpy and weak.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that.
So my
all
question becomes
around.
how, and I think we've established that Russia has a different mindset, one that you understand better than me, but do they rally around their leader, and can he twist it in such a way that we're losing because of what, right? And I need to do this. And we don't know that. I'm not saying, let's not be naive. There's been misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda since the first wars were fought. But we now have the ability to send the disinformation, to send the blatant lies, to send the propaganda and have it circulate the world in 7 seconds. Does that change things? It has to. You could do blackouts. In World War II, reporters for the Allies only got what the military wanted them to get. Vietnam, reporters were able to get into the field, and once they got in there, were reporting the real facts, right? Now we're back to something new, which is it doesn't matter sometimes what you report. It means more what people believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they talk about winning the hearts, minds of the people. Right now, I think the hearts and minds of the majority of Americans are with the Ukrainian people. But will they get tired if gas goes to 7, 8, 9? And their solutions are absurd. Open up the pipeline. You know how long it's not even built yet.
Right. And like Jen Psaki said, there was 9,000 other wells that are open to be, serviced, so to speak, and they're not using them. I just burned myself with that.
That gets
goddamn
back
match.
to the unholy trio that we're facing today. And I don't want to make it sound, I always think that flippant, do you want to die from cancer or burning in a fire? I don't want to die at all. And if I do die, I want it to be painless. Get those druthers. But right now, we're facing 3 crises, greater than those 3 crises have ever been. We're still in a pandemic.
Right.
We haven't had one for 100 years. Where every day that we refuse to do the right things about climate, that doomsday clock moves. And now we have that third very real possibility of nuclear war.
And a possibility of a civil unrest or war in this country.
Well, I'm not dismissing that. That's our problem. It's not going to destroy the world. Those other 3, those other 3 could. And Brian, I've come around. I don't mean come around. That says no. I don't have an answer for bringing this country together. I don't think anyone has it. Later tonight, so people stay tuned. I have a couple quotes from Republican leaders that support that. Right? There's just nothing you can. I'm going to use a cliche. There's nothing you can take to the bank and know it's going to happen. Not today.
I do know one thing, Dave, and I'm going to show you this. There are a lot of North Americans and Europeans, a lot of Poles,
right,
going over there, essentially mercenaries. This one fellow here, I'm going to show you a video. This guy, Dave, is considered probably the best sniper in the world. I think he can get somebody from 2,000 feet very easy. He's just supposedly amazing, and he decided he's going to go over there.
It'll say the video, but just set me up. What country? American?
No, he's Canadian. They won't give his real name, but I'll
Right.
put it on. Okay, I'll just have to remind myself to turn loop back off after this video. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. It says it should be too long.
A former sniper now in Ukraine to join the fight.
I want to help them because they want to be free, basically. It's as simple as that.
He served in Afghanistan and Iraq, then as a foreign fighter against ISIS in Syria. Now Wally's left his IT job to take up arms against Russia.
Basically, they just send us list of weapons, Ukrainian weapons. They have like anti-tank weapons. They have a sniper rifle, assault rifle, grenades, and rockets.
He asked us to keep his real name confidential over concerns for his safety. He crossed the border into Ukraine from Poland, joining up with a group of fellow Canadians and British veterans, all with military backgrounds. He says they were greeted with hugs, handshakes, and flags by Ukrainians.
I had to help because there are people here that are being bombarded just because they want to be European, basically, and not Russian.
So he joined a brigade led by another Canadian, a former military reservist who asked not to be identified over concerns for his wife and 3-year-old who live in Ukraine.
I was on the phone with my wife, and you could hear like the 152 millimeters just hitting around the building.
The risks are obvious, being killed, injured, or captured, but as mercenaries, there could be more.
They would be at risk of not receiving the protections under international humanitarian law.
Wally says he knows all this. His wife begged him not to go.
My son, his first birthday is in a week. Yes. So I feel like it's hard, okay? That's the hardest part, actually.
The Prime Minister says those who want to support Ukraine can make a personal choice about how, but the government has been warning Canadians for weeks to avoid traveling to Ukraine and to leave if they can.
Hold on, Dave. I want to put this back to... All right, so basically, Dave, you saw that, and there are plenty of mercenaries going over there right now. In fact, my friend Kevin Wheeler, who was supposed to be on the night, I guess, I don't know, maybe he went bowling, but he was going to go.
Well, Brian, let me interrupt
had a
just
bad
for a
heart.
second.
Yeah.
Anytime I had a chance to go bowling, even if I was going to be one of the 10 pins and be struck down, or spend time with you,
Okay.
Kevin made a great choice.
So, but anyway, 3 of Kevin's friends are in Ukraine right now. So maybe this acts as a counterbalance to what's going on with the Syrians. I don't know.
How many Syrians did you say?
16,000.
I
I mean,
I read 16.
and of course, I was wondering too. Was that because Putin feels they're losing, or they don't want to lose that many Russians, or they just need the Chechens and the Syrians there? But it does escalate things, and it does get things because you don't know. Every soldier is different from each country, and we don't know what the Syrians would do. I'm not trying to cast any aspersions that a Syrian soldier would do something less or more than.
Well, I would assume he's under less control than a Russian.
Right, he doesn't have a
soldier
commander with him, right? I would assume.
Right.
And he's probably not going to be under Russian command. Russians aren't going to let that.
And again, I don't want to say that this is a bad thing these people are doing. Not the Syrians, of course, that's bad. But these people, but both. It seems like those 2, and there was only 2 of the many that are going, had a reason. One had family in Ukraine. I think that the one
Trev just has it here. I mean, the Canadians do have a lot of Ukrainians there. Yeah,
and that's what. Yeah, Trev, that's what I was assuming. So it's one thing to go back and fight for your country, right? It's another thing to pick up and go fight just for freedom of someone else with no ties.
Right. Now, is that? I mean, who knows how many thousands? I mean, I know there's some from Great Britain, some from Canada, some from the United States. That mercenary says he's just one who's supposed just the best in the world, probably, or at least one of the best in the world.
Right.
So he's going to take some people out. There's no doubt about that. But I still, everything gets more and more complicated.
Well, you want me to complicate it? Tonight's my night to just.
Are you going to announce you're going to Ukraine?
No, I'm a pacifist.
Well, I'd like to send Kyle Rittenhouse there. That would be nice.
Well, you saw the memes that are out there.
He's not
Have
going.
his mom drive him.
I don't even think he's going to go to Taco Bell. Okay.
No. Okay, let's look. Let's take another impossible scenario, saying that nothing's impossible. All right, so Syrians who have been bombed like shit from the West and Israel, different periods, right? Israel and the United States aligned in their mind. They capture 4 U.S. mercenaries, right? They degrade, defile, and then use the beheading after all of that, drag them. That gets airplay back here. What does that do to American people? Do you say they went there on their own? They knew what they were doing? I don't know.
They did know what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing.
But the rah-rahs here, USA, USA.
Yeah, but I mean, this isn't a hockey game. You know what I mean? And that's part of the problem.
It is to them.
Well, that's
Right.
not a good thing. That's a very bad thing.
It is to them. Come on, you're giving people way too much credit tonight.
No.
What is the object of war?
It's always to win. To impose your will on the other country.
There you are. And once you get to that point, a lot of things get thrown.
I'm sure the Russians are fighting harder now because a lot of them are dying. See, if you're with your buddy and you're in a tank and people are dying, you got to fight for yourself. I mean, you don't care which side you're on. You've got to survive. Nobody wants to die.
No. And so once you're in a war, my feeling, all bets are off about who's going to fight nicely and who's going to do what and who's not going to use what and how people are going to be taken. And is it better to kill someone, a gun, or behead them? You're still killing them.
Dave, I'm going to send you a little bit of private stuff here. Okay.
I see it. Well, I don't think it's so bad. I know where you're going to go with this.
No, I'm not going to go with it. I just want you to know.
Okay.
You can
The
keep
idea
going.
is, and we're seeing the comments here. I would assume that even though people may have very close Russian ties or very close Ukrainian ties, that unless you're there, you don't know what's going on, right? All you know is what's reported to you, what's there, and you're going to bring some facts in. And again, I'm look, the president of the Ukraine was ready for this moment. He's an actor. And whether he believes it or not, he's doing a hell of a job convincing people that he's a hero. The mere fact that he stays there. His kids are there. His wife is there. He didn't run. That plays out very well around the world. But as a couple of people have pointed out, a couple of our people, it's a very complex situation. Russia, Ukraine. You said, Brian, right? Ruska, or whatever the language was, comes out of there.
Which country? Chechens or?
No, I'm just saying that whole situation. Is it any better, really, than the Middle East and all its fighting over the years? I don't know. I don't see it being a whole hell of a lot different. They're this and affiliated with, and the one thing about America, we have not had until recently. No, we've always had divided, but not war. We've only had war once over division from 1861 to 1865. Now, unfortunately, there's still people still fighting it. They think the South will rise again. And Kink.
Let me go back to that.
No, I'm just saying, okay, that's absolute. That's, I don't know if he's 4'6". I know he's not that big.
He's probably more like 5'7".
But I don't care about that. That's showing that's
right.
That's
I know I know he knows that too. Okay, I get that.
No, I'm just it's the idea of it is he's not a large man, but he tries to portray himself as one, and he is a fascist dictator. But I don't even think it's Russia that he's interested in leading. He's interested in lining his own pockets. And that may be why Trump admires him so much, that he's able to have this control. And arguably, it's the richest man in the world.
Right. Now, I've brought this up before, Dave, and those of you in the chat, you can either agree or disagree. But in the days of the Soviet Union, what was the real difference between the United States in terms of money and power was that in the Soviet Union, power was number one. Power brought you money, whereas in the United States, money brings you power. So it's kind of really strange, but it's really the opposite in these countries. And it seems to me that Putin was able to get the power first. And so I think if you're going to look at money and power, no matter how much money he has, he wants that power. He's drunk on it. And even in a certain sense with Trump, if you think about it, Dave, and I've said this, I remember there was I have a number of Russians who speak with me, but one from Perm who said, he's a rich guy. But I said, no, he's actually a really, really poor guy because he's in such debt. And I explained how people who are in great debt kind of get bailed out by banks. But what Trump was able to do was kind of a Russian thing when he became president. He was able to acquiesce power without the money. You know what I mean? He really did do a Russian type of thing, looking back at Soviet era politics. So
Well,
when we look at Putin, I think that this is more about power than money.
well, I said earlier, I'm going to jump in here now for a moment. It's still on the same subject of war and how we got there. I'm going to charge tonight Donald Trump in an indirect way has made this situation far worse than it had to be.
Dave, I'm going to cut one last comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm really sorry, but I have to do this. But Kinky brought up a point. I don't like George Bush. Everybody knows it. And I've told you this before. I've had 3 Scottish Terriers, and one of them's name was Barney. And I remember George Bush felt really bad that Putin insulted his dog. Said that's not a real dog, and that hurt me because one of my dogs got in a terrible fight with a dog 7 times as big as him, and he fought like hell. That Scottish Terrier, and I never saw anything fight so overwhelmed by the size of another dog, and it really hurt for something just to say because that dog was small that somehow that wasn't worth the love of the owner. And it was the only time I ever agreed with with George Bush. That was the only time, So I had to say that before we forget.
Do you really think Putin gives a shit about any animal on this planet?
No. I know.
Do you think Donald Trump gives a shit?
No, he doesn't give a shit.
Any animal on this planet?
But I think George Bush does, and so does.
Right. That's a sign of humanity and compassion.
Right.
And love.
Empathy, right.
Empathy, all of that. So we're talking about this. But anyway, let's get back to Mr. Trump here for a second.
I'm sorry for interrupting, Dave. Really.
Oh, no. Always do that. I don't have no problem with that. So why do I say this? 4 years, let me get my 4 up there. 4 years, Donald Trump is president. He is the first president since the 40s to not make some effort to lessen the threat of nuclear war. Did you know that, Brian?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
Donald Trump is the first president since the dropping of the atomic bomb in 1945 that made no effort, did nothing to lessen the threat of nuclear war.
Sounds about right.
It is right.
There were no SALT talks or anything like that.
Okay. Now it gets worse. It's one thing not to do anything. It's another to do things that are counterproductive to what it is you're not doing. So what did he do? On numerous occasions, he used nuclear taunts, braggadocio, these very things we're saying Putin may or may not be doing. This is very well, I shouldn't say, I said that fairly well. It came out as very well. Fairly well documented that on at least 3 separate occasions, he asked generals this question: if we have nukes, how come we can't use them? Really? He said, can you go back and look at the record? He said, I can see reasons to use nuclear weapons. And he mentioned 2 in particular: cyber attack and conventional warfare. He ordered research into and actually building of and getting more what they claim are more usable weapons, nuclear weapons. And do you know what that means when they say more usable? It's tactical. It's limited, small. It doesn't spread like the big
neutron
megaton
bomb, that kind of thing.
Right. As we said before, he failed to have any meaningful talks with Russia or China, the 2 biggest nuclear powers besides ourselves, the whole time. And buddied up to Putin in their manly show of who has a bigger dick size. No, they didn't even do that. They didn't even do that. So, the other thing that I found very, very disturbing, and I forgot this. Do you remember when Rex Tillerson was one of the 1,400 or however many secretaries of state Trump had, and he called Trump a moron?
Fucking moron, actually.
Do you know why you called him a moron?
Because he's a fucking moron.
True, but there was one specific order that led to...
I actually forget, Dave, so you have to refresh me.
I know you would. And I didn't remember it either. I was researching it today. Rex Tillerson, who's no prize.
No, he's not.
He said that after Trump, in a large meeting with the most important people in government there, said, I want a tenfold increase in America's nuclear weapons. Now, on the one hand, you have not doing anything. You have him posturing. Does Putin think that the United States has a different idea now? If they would use them, who knows? And so where we find ourselves tonight, in my estimation, is back in a 1950s, 60s nuclear hysteria, but it's no longer the 1950s and 1960s. We have actors in the world who, at least by their verbiage, indicate that nuclear weapons are just another weapons of war, especially if you can limit the spread. So we kind of return where we've been since Trump glided down that golden stairway in what someday I hope will be looked at as in horror of the Donald Trump horror tour 100 years from now, if the building lasts. Is it Trump's fault? Did he make Putin do it? No. Did he do anything to lessen the idea of Putin doing it? No. Can you look at some of those remarks encouraging Putin to do it? Does Donald Trump sit there tonight believing that he lost the presidency of the United States because it was stolen from him? The answer is yes. So is he going to anyway help the situation? Only if it could lead to his being restored as president tomorrow. We made a mistake. We as Americans made a mistake. We elected the absolutely worst person to be president at one of the deadliest times in the history of the world. And we're going to pay a price for that. Now, people will say to me, well, I didn't vote for him. Did you try to encourage anybody to vote who wasn't voting? Did you try, when we still almost could talk to the opposite side, to try to reason with them? Did you say, they're all liars? What difference does it make?
Right.
Did you say, I voted Republican the last 10 elections? My papa voted Republican. My grandpapa voted. And so I'm going to vote Republican regardless. Well, if you did any of those things or didn't do the things you should, you're part of the problem too. And that's what bothers me even more than the threat of nuclear weapons. I no longer know how my country is going to respond. And there's nothing that I could see being done to reassure me, unless, not because I'm a Democrat, it's because I despise what the Republicans have become. And I'm a liberal, and there are more liberal Democrats, unless the following things happen in 2022 and 22.
Dave, have you heard this thing here real quick? That the U.S. consulate under construction Erbil was attacked by 4 missiles.
Kiki, could you just put up? I don't not question you. Where did you see that? Because that.
I'll have to check CNN while you're talking. Maybe they.
Yeah, you do that. See, and Kiki, this is what else happened. That's bad, right? But it's under this umbrella of all this other bad stuff.
I don't see it as any main story here.
Well, who knows? I mean, I'm just saying. But okay, let's say it's not. Let's say it's made up. That's the other problem. We've all done that, Brian. I've done it. I try not to. I see something that seems believable, right? It would be logical to attack any kind of United States right now while our attention is focused on another part of the world. And and it's also, and I'm going to condemn my friends in the news media, and I mean the real news media. It used to be in print. I can't talk about radio or television because I never worked in it. You had 2 responsibility. One was to get it first, and the second was to get it right. But you delayed the first of getting it first until you were sure you could get it right. And ask any reporter who worked in the 70s or 80s, the 2 decades I worked, and they will tell you about stories they had to sit on for a long time, sometimes to get legal clearance, sometimes because they wanted more confirmation. And now that's been replaced with first.
So, Dave, you see that Biden has warned Russia that if they use any type of chemical weapons, there'll be a severe response. So when Biden says severe, Brian? That's where I was going to ask you. I mean,
what do?
Okay. You just say it.
Okay.
Let's put it this way: does it make it more and more likely that the United States does come in with some limited no-fly zone or something if that happens?
Look, I would not want to be Joe Biden tonight. I wouldn't want to be Joe Biden anytime. I wouldn't want to be the president of the United States, even if they up the if your salary was based on that of Jeff Bezos. I wouldn't want it. So he has a tough choice. What does that mean? Brian, again, I use you as an everyman. I don't expect you to know all things, but are you familiar with the book, excuse me, oh, good Lord, Failsafe? Does that mean anything to you? Or the movie?
No.
It's before your time, right, in the 60s. Basically, this is what happened. We're on the edge of nuclear holocaust like we are now. But there weren't even... It was more unknown than now. And this was a made-up story, but certainly not without the realm of possibility. Signals got garbled, and a lone U.S. plane got to Moscow. And those people on that plane believed that the Russians had already launched an attack. And their target was take out Moscow. And indeed, it was through a whole fiasco, series of things that couldn't happen. They should have been shot down. They did that. They were able to launch a nuclear weapon on Moscow. The Russian president survived, and some of the government people did. And they got back and they said, well, and the president said, it was a mistake. The American president, it's a mistake. And finally, they were able to negotiate a settlement. You wouldn't know because you didn't know. The settlement was this. Russia was allowed to bomb New York City with nuclear bombs.
You know, I do have a distinct memory of something like that as a movie.
It's no, I mean, but I mean, can you imagine that?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember. I remember something like that.
No,
Yes, I do.
guess what I'm trying to say, and not doing a very good job of it, is we're in the unimaginable right now with all this stuff circulating around us, you know? And you mentioned earlier about climate change, and you and I agree, is the ultimate destruction of the world looking at us. I also agree with you that right now this could be more imminent, is more imminent.
And the irony would send us into a nuclear winter, which is really bizarre.
And we're not even sure of that. I'm not willing to risk
Right.
it.
I mean, it'll basically sanitize or
I understand.
sterilize the planet.
But again, if it were so you've got people who are devoting their lives to trying to save the planet.
Right.
And they're good people.
Right.
And I admire them. My granddaughter, we were talking about it, and I said, we're talking about the problems, and she decided that's the one two she wants to work on. Equality for women as a minor and saving the planet as a major. Now, we've also got people working tirelessly to try to make sure that we don't get another pandemic. They're all interrelated. How does that relate to the pandemic? You start putting
really, have
people
you
in
ever seen so many things happening at
refugee
once?
camp, right? Suddenly some variant jumps out of there. I don't know. And then on top of this, you have the war. You have a divided America, but it's always been somewhat divided. I think what makes it topsy-turvy for people like me, it was usually the Republicans nuke them back to the Stone Age, right? And now it's I'd rather. Putin's a pretty good guy, you know. I like Max's comment. Yeah, Trump wouldn't like the Putin. Now, let's look at that. Are there Nazis in the Ukraine? You know what the answer is?
I said this 2 weeks ago. Whether the Brothers of Azov or whatever they are, there is a small portion of some right, as all countries have. But they held no parliamentary seats, and they worked at getting them out of there.
But Brian, I know that, and you know that. But there are people who say, you said there's Nazis there.
A Nazi is what a Nazi does.
Well, we have Nazis here.
Kevin said he just got off work, so I'll send him a link. It'd be good to have him.
Oh, good. Okay. It'd be nice to get somebody else on tonight.
Okay.
Let me change gears just for a minute in case. One of the things I want to start doing more and more, because 2022 is just around the corner, and Republicans never fail to give us good ammunition to show just what. Let's try to be nice tonight. What pawn scum, passing as humanity they are. All right, so I chose 3. Many of them are your favorites tonight. To talk about a little bit. So let's start with your girl who wears a gun on her hip, the 3-time GED taker, Lauren Boebert. Now, she's usually good for a comment. This was her comment of the week this week. I'm going to repeat it twice. Oh, and guess where she made it? Of course, on Fox News. Here it is. I don't know who's running the federal government these days, Joe Biden or Prince John from Prince John. Let me repeat that. I don't know who is running the federal government these days, Joe Biden or Prince John from Prince John. Explain that to me. You can't. Not to be outdone, however, let's get somebody who probably does have more intelligence than Lauren Boebert, but may even be more of a political whore. and that would be your favorite. Well, sometimes it's Rudy Giuliani, but often you've told me your favorite attorney in America is Bill Barr. So Bill Barr's out there selling his book. Now, anybody has a right to write a book. I was in my local Barnes and Noble, right down the street from me the other day. They have a whole table devoted to Bill Barr's book.
Right.
Couple reasons for that. In Washington, Washingtonians are, they get more book sales if you're from Washington. You've also got somebody they want to see, and it's been on the news, etc. Barnes and Noble is going to sell the book because it sells. Bill Barr knew that. My charge would be, I would charge him, it would be hard to prove, but I'd charge him with treason for not speaking out earlier with these things. But here's what he said. After saying multiple times in the book that he felt Donald Trump was delusional, especially considering the fact that he believed, Donald Trump believed, the election was stolen from him and he won. Okay. Well, after all that, this is what Mr. Barr had to say. Ready, Bri?
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe that the greatest threat to this country is the progressive agenda being pushed by the Democratic Party. It's inconceivable to me that I wouldn't vote for the Republican nominee. Now, he didn't say unless it was Donald Trump or somebody like Donald Trump. No. Basically, what he said, I want a delusional, crazy person whom I believe is delusional and crazy after I spent months with him running the country. Good job, Billy. And the last is the secret woman that you really lust after more, if it's humanly possible, than
who is it? I want to know who I lust
Berbert
after.
Or Miss Green. And that would be your favorite former American ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
Now, Nikki Haley is being mentioned, not as a presidential candidate, but as a vice presidential. In fact, she's been a name, if Donald Trump were to run, she's one of the front runners, because it certainly won't be Pence. Okay, so you got to remember going into this that she was a ranking U.S. diplomat assigned to be the United States ambassador to the United Nations. Ready? Again, delivered on Fox News. I was mortified that Biden went so far as to ask China for help. You never ask an enemy for help with another country. Wanting to dig herself even deeper, she's tried this one. You never negotiate. You never deal with your enemies. That means you'd never get a treaty anywhere, right? Camp David Accords gone, and the list would go on and on and on. So I think I'm going to have to give a three-way tie this week. I know you'll be upset because you wouldn't give it to Barr because of your great feeling of his legal esteem. And may I direct the first question to Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin, this is
Yeah,
Dave.
go ahead,
I
guys.
think
Can you hear
you've
me?
met Dave before, but just in case, this is David
Yes,
Price.
no, I remember Dave. Yeah. Can
Okay.
you guys
Hey,
hear me
Kevin,
though?
I just have one question for you. When we did speak, and I thought you were extremely intelligent, articulate, right on the money. So my question is this. Why in the hell are you friends with Brian Weinstein?
Well, that goes way back, Dave. Come on, like we were like little boys back then.
Well, let me ask you something.
He was
You
a
weren't using any.
snot-nosed little kid.
You weren't
He was a
using any
snot-nosed little kid back
mind-changing,
then, but we loved
mood-altering
each other.
chemicals at that time, were you? I mean, I use that excuse all that time.
What? That he was a snot-nosed little kid?
Well, he's a snot-nosed big. He's a snot-nosed snot.
There we go. Easy for you to say.
Big kid now. No, Kevin,
Sorry, guys, if I look
what
terrible, I just got off work, so
Don't worry,
and
Kevin,
Brian
you're
just
good.
sent me this link. So
no, Kevin, thank you.
no,
for
I'm
being
kind
on.
of I'm kind of worried right now because Brian and I talked about maybe 4 or 5 days ago. I did put my application in to join up with the Ukrainian Liberation Army. Got turned down because of my heart, not because of my military background or my skills that I have. But I do have 3 of my buddies that are over there right now.
And you were in the Canadian military at one time.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Kevin, could you walk us through? Because I think that's a very brave decision that you and your 3 friends made. So you might not be able to speak for them, nor should you, but you can speak for yourself. How did you arrive at the fact that I'm going to go over and risk my life in the Ukraine?
Well, because, Dave, it's, like I do have a lot of Ukrainian Canadian friends. I do have family that lives in Toronto who know Ukrainian Canadian friends. My buddies and I, we were both in Iraq and Kuwait, and over there it was just terrible. I mean, we shouldn't have been there in the first place. But with Ukraine, to me, it's a different story for me and my heart anyways. It's just another tyrant trying to take over the world, and that shouldn't happen. Hitler found out the hard way in, World War II, that he couldn't get away with it. He was the one, quote, they said he killed himself in a bunker, but who knows? But,
right.
But I mean, just to see the atrocities that are going over in Ukraine, and like I had mentioned that question to you guys last week when I posted that question about saying, would Putin actually do this if Ukraine was actually in NATO?
And that's
would
a
he
question.
would he actually go into Ukraine to take on NATO forces? That's a whole different story,
And I think, from my limited understanding, so I'll certainly defer to anyone who has more expertise. Is this? My understanding is Ukraine applied for NATO status, and I think it should have been granted. And I'm assuming the reason might have been we'll offend Russia if we do that. My question is, how well did it work out? How well did that plan work?
It didn't work out good. If you just got to see that. Well, I mean, look, I'm not a media buff. I don't really watch a lot of the news and stuff because you never know what's true, what's not true. What I see what Brian sends me, I know is true because Brian goes in depth with all this every day. So with my working and stuff, I do keep up every day, and a lot of people get on my balls. Basically, I've got a few friends that they're like Putin enthusiasts, and they think that that this goes all the way back to the Tsar days of Russia. And I was going, well, if you read your history, they were just as bad back then as they are now. I mean, we know what Putin wants. Putin wants the West. He wants all of Europe. Or why would he threaten Finland to say, if you join NATO, even though Finland's not part of the Russian Republic or the old CSSR, well, if you join NATO, we'll bring the wrath of God down on you. Well, where does a guy get off saying that? That'd be like Trudeau saying to Biden, oh, well, guess what? We don't like what you're doing in the States, but we'll invade you if you don't kind of smarten up. Us invading the United States would be like pulling teeth out of a walrus.
Well, Kevin, some people are just, I'm this and I'm not going to change. I view myself
sorry, just had to close
basically.
The door. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Basically, I view myself as a pacifist. I would try to avoid war. I wish we didn't have them. I wish we didn't have guns. That's not realistic. So if you're going to have and enter a war, it should be a just. You mentioned Afghanistan and Iraq, and I still don't understand why we in the Western countries were there. Vietnam, same way. But I do understand that we did the right thing, even if for some of the wrong reasons, in World War II in America, and again in Canada joining us. And I think you're absolutely right, Kevin. Where do you stand up to a dictator? or do you just let him roll, and you can't let him roll?
Yeah, I mean, my 3 buddies, Dave, that are over there right now. One of my buddies right now, he's 59. One of my other buddies is 61. The other one's 63.
And that's old for, I mean, not to put them down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's our age, but that's a tough haul. And
Well,
it must really mean
hate-
something to them to do that.
I'm sure, Kevin, in your background, liking Brian Weinstein isn't the only fault that you have. But I want to say something to you, and you can relay it to your 3 friends. And I'm not going to send thoughts and prayers, but I'm going to send hopes that they accomplish what they want to do and get back, so you guys can all go have a beer. And if it happens, send Brian the bill. But what you guys did is what I think a lot of us want to do, is the right thing. And I've told Brian this a lot. I mean, I've been protesting in the United States since 1968, off and on. But every protest who takes to a Moscow street or any Russian street is far braver.
Right. There's a lot different protesting there. You're going to get your ass kicked for a long time.
Kevin, it's the same thing with this. It's one thing to say, yeah, this is horrible. But you, and the fact that you didn't go doesn't mitigate it. You were ready to go.
Oh, I would have went in a minute.
That to me,
Brian knew I was going to go, Dave. If I didn't get turned down medically,
I know.
I would have been there in a heartbeat.
Could I make one suggestion? Since he is fluent in the Russian, why don't you send Brian in your place? I know his wife would be grateful. I know I would be grateful.
Look, we're only going to send Kyle Rittenhouse there. That's the only person we're going to send.
Yeah.
When he goes first, then we'll think about the rest
Kyle
of us.
can't go, and I told you why he's not going. He only goes to places his mother can drive him. She can't drive him to the Ukraine.
Well,
I don't know if you've seen this on MSN in the last couple of days, but there was a young Canadian kid that was in the military in Canada. I think he was about 20. I think he's 25. I didn't read the whole story, but just to see his picture. The sniper. Yeah.
Oh, he's great.
And
we were just talking about him being in the show.
Brian ran a clip tonight.
And they're lining up left and right. And I'm just not talking older guys, we'll say 50 and above. I'm talking younger kids that only did maybe a 4-year term. A lot of guys are trying to sign up now. And I give them kudos. I really do.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, the Ukraine's going to need them apparently because, as Dave and I had said, that they're inviting 16,000 Syrians and a certain number of thousand Chechens, probably 6, 7. I don't know the exact number. But they certainly could use that one guy because he's apparently the best in the world, or very close to it. He can judge the wind and this and that and hit you from a mile or 2 away. He's going to get some people. Not that I'm applauding people dying, but they have at least it puts the thought in their head like, this is not going to be a cakewalk.
I would say he's number 3.
But number Brian, 3. I'm convinced. I think you're selling yourself short. Kevin could train in 48 hours to be number 4.
Okay.
I think he could. Kevin, I have a question, and I don't know how many Americans are going. I also have heard of from friends in Canada, of others that are doing this. Do the majority have some kind of connection, either with the large Ukrainian communities that do exist, or have relatives over there? I know one person who smoked in it. Yeah.
Well, I think
it would be interesting.
A lot of it's not that we just want to go over and kill Russians. A lot of
I realize that
they want to back family, and I think that's what it comes down to. They have either friends or family, and that's But I mean, you're going to get your oddball out of the group. You may out of maybe 5,000 Canadians, you're going to get 1,000 that just want to go over there because they're single, they got nothing to live for. And I mean, I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Ukrainian government are paying guys to go over.
As they should.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem.
Now, I don't think the Russians are paying the Syrians, or are they? I don't know.
Well, they're not killing them.
No.
That's payment, right?
And why the
Kevin, I have a
Syrians are
question.
going over to back Russia anyways, like to what Putin said, he's got enough that he could take over Kiev, he can run through Ukraine, all Western European countries. Why does he need the Syrians' help anyways? Like, to me, that's just stupid. Why do you think China's backed out of this? Like you were talking about earlier about when I had just jumped on, Dave, about China. They deal with a lot of the Western nations. They do. Their productivity out of China.
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
In Canada and the United States, everything you see on a label now is made in China, made in Taiwan, made in China, made in Taiwan. Do you think they want to cut off those ties? No, not to me anyways.
And I think you're absolutely on something that worries me in this sense.
Yeah.
China does not want to destroy its economic friends, loosely. I mean, different government. Russia doesn't have that compulsion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't. No.
They don't. And Putin, so you've got an oligarch, you've got a Russian mindset, you've got some Russians who feel that Ukraine should be with them or better off with them. So yeah, it's and China backing off or remaining neutral is a lot better than being in Russians' camp, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be one of the biggest nasty things I think you could see is that China was actually backing Russia in this to do it, because you got to realize, like the United States is not a communist country. Canada sure the hell isn't a communist country, but you've got Russia who wants to be a communist country again, and you got China who are communists. So
no,
and
I think that we're talking earlier.
Do they scratch each other's back, over this? Do they scratch each other's back and say, look, if things get desperate, will you back me or will that? Well, that's the same with NATO. I mean, I know that Brian knows about this quite well, that, Canada is part of the Commonwealth. There's a lot of countries in our Commonwealth. Britain's part of the Commonwealth. The Queen is our mother in Canada. So Britain's going to back Canadians no matter what we do. Australia, you've got a lot of smaller states like the Bahamas and places like that are in the Canadian Commonwealth that will come to our aid if we need them. So, we are part of NATO, and that's what I believe in, is that, that I don't think anybody should be taught any different. If you want to be part of NATO, then let them sign up. But Putin doesn't want any part of Russia to be NATO. Because what happened? He got his, if I remember right, did he not get his ass booted out of NATO?
Well, he wanted to be in NATO, but there's no way that they were going to get any kind of status in that.
No, of course not. And that's what he's pissed off about, because he wanted to be in NATO to run it. Well, too bad.
Well, Kevin, the nice thing about this show is none of us are experts.
No, we're not.
Hell, if Brian's on the show, some of us don't even have any sense. But you did fight, and that does give you some insight into that. How do you see this situation playing out, knowing that you don't have a crystal ball, you don't know what's going to happen? It can change moment to moment. But what is your best thoughts tonight, given what we know today and what we don't know? How do you see it playing out in the next few weeks?
That's how I see it playing out. And I don't think it's going to be the next few weeks, actually, Dave. I think it's going to be about the next 30 days. That's if Putin's forces don't go all the way right into the bare bones of Kiev. I think he's kind of being smart right now. He's just firing missiles from like 40, 50 kilometers away just to do whatever he can, because I don't think he really knows what is waiting for him in Kiev. I really just don't think he knows. And he may have his little spies in there, telling him this and telling them that, dressed up like Ukrainian soldiers, saying, these are the soft spots to hit. These are the ones you don't want to hit, but I think once he starts finding out, and you can't tell me that he does not know that a lot of people around the world that are different age groups are going to back the people of Ukraine, that he may actually back down a bit. Now, chances are, will he take over Ukraine? Likely, yes. I have a funny feeling that that's going to happen. Will economic sanctions stop him? It will hurt the people of Russia, but it's hurting everybody with all these sanctions. But that's the way that I think the world goes nowadays. Is he going to be afraid to say, well, if you put pressure on me, I'm just going to hit a button? No, I don't think he will do that unless he's backed into a corner, because Biden sure wouldn't do it. And either would Xi in China. He would never hit a button either. I mean, that's just the deterrent in this war. But this reminds me a lot of Afghanistan and Iraq and Kuwait, it's the same shit all over again. Like it's, you know,
For people who
in
wouldn't
this world,
understand that, can you explain what how you look at that as the same shit? I mean, I know, I think I know, but not everybody
Yeah.
might say.
it's just, you know what, it comes down to the power of money. Like, I mean, this is a lot of stuff that goes on. Like, if you don't do what Putin says, my understanding when I talked to my buddy Rob, one of my buddies that's over there right now, he said to me, he said, and we talked about this weeks ago about joining up, and I said to him, I said, look, I'll go if I'm accepted, but you know, I've got a bad heart, but he said, yeah, but it doesn't matter because your military skills, they need those. And I told the gentleman at the Ukrainian embassy in Canada, I said, look, I may have a bad heart, but I could get killed over there anyway. So what's the difference? Just let me go, you know, but they have their rules. But I don't think that this is going to end well. I really just don't think it's going to end well for the Ukrainian people.
And I don't know
and
if
it's
you
a
can
sad
see it.
story. It's a
When you
sad
see
story.
Veg's
that-
comment up there, can you put that back up a second?
Yeah.
Brent? It feels like 1930, and just we had 4 years of 1984, so we're going backwards.
Right.
1984 with Trump, and now it does feel like 1939. And yet, while you were having fun bowling and not talking to Brian, and I was really jealous because I really would like to do anything other than talk to Brian.
No, I
we were-
work at the bowling alley, Dave. I work at the bowling alley. I bowl only once or twice a week, but I
That's
work there,
okay.
so-
I'm just talking about avoiding Brian. No,
No, I'd never avoid Brian. Come on. He's not that bad.
you're a nice guy. Listen, but what we were talking about earlier, and I believe this to be true. 1984 was fictional, but it was kind of representative of what was going on, but not exactly. 1939 was reality, but we're almost 100 years removed from that. And so what it means is it's not going to be the same. And my feeling is the repercussions could be far worse. And you say, how could they be far worse? Well, let's see what happens, right?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I don't think it's gonna end well for Ukraine. I think that Kiev will fall. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of people putting their lives on the line there, but I do think it's going to fall. A lot of countries right now, yeah, they've stepped up to give them, you know, like Stinger missiles. They've given them anti-tank missiles, you know, they've sent them ammunition. They've given them millions and millions of dollars, but they need the manpower.
Right.
Well, let me throw this at you. Just like Churchill was kind of hoping that something like Pearl Harbor would happen because it would definitely draw the United States into it. I'm just wondering if Zelensky, as a hero that he is, I just wonder if he's kind of hoping that, you know, maybe the Russians will have that cruise missile at the end that rattles around and goes in the wrong place. Then it hits somewhere in Poland or Romania. Then you've got to do it. What happens then? Then at that point, I think all bets are off unless Biden wants to say, okay, because, you know, don't forget, Obama kind of backed down when he said he had that red line with chemical weapons in Syria and then, or wherever it was, and then they went over the red line and he did nothing. So it will be interesting, but nobody wants nuclear war. We know that.
Yeah.
But again, once something goes over
I'm
into
going to
Poland,
go rogue on you for a minute. I'm not so sure you could put Putin in that category.
in which category, as far as
You said nobody wants nuclear war.
well, that's the thing, you know. First of all, he can't win it. He could be the first to launch,
I realize that, Brian.
unless he thinks his hypersonic weapons can, you know, beat us to the punch, which is sickening as it is.
Or
to be
he
honest,
brings a
guys,
strike in Europe.
He won't do that.
Bring
He
us
won't.
in.
He will not take
Okay.
a chance on doing that. No.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
He
for
just basically
reassuring
wants.
me.
He just wants to basically win Ukraine over by land, not by using, you know, nuclear weapons.
Okay.
And that's why I think that, you know, the United States or China has jumped in to say, you know, you need to stop, because we know they won't. They'll send, like I said, they'll send them ballistic missiles, anti-tank missiles, they'll send them armament, they'll send them money, but nobody's going to go into a nuclear war. And if they did, it would have been a long time ago. Because don't forget, back in World War II, what did the United States do when they dropped the bomb in Hiroshima? What did they do when they dropped it on Nagasaki? That ended the Japanese real fast, because they've never seen anything like that before. But
Right. And
nowadays,
the Russians
we all
kind of
know,
figured it
yeah,
out.
we all know
No.
what nuclear weapons can do. You know, like
Except
everybody knows.
and again, I'm not arguing, except a madman.
It could
Except
be a
who-
wasteland. Yeah, I know he's a madman.
No, but no, I'm saying we don't know whether he's an angry, that kind of mad, or actually insane. My bet is you're right. But the other thing I want to ask Kevin before we pull out, in America right now, one of the big concerns about this is the price of gas. And, you know, we have people that are saying this is Biden's fault. I don't want to go through all that. We know there's such a war. Are Canadians concerned about any economic effects? I think sometimes Canadians just seem to be so laid back and cool for the most part. So what's the situation up there? I mean, do they understand that when you're involved in a situation like this, and we're involved,
Yeah.
yes, Canada, that there's going to be some deprivations, I guess is the way I'm looking at it.
Well, right now we're at about, because we do our stuff here now in liters, which is like 4.5 liters in a gallon. Right now, Canadian wise, most places now, like we're paying like $9 a gallon.
Okay.
Right now, most of the Canadian Tire's just across the street from me, and they're at about, I think it was $1.90, $1.96.5 a liter today.
Okay.
And we just can't figure out, you know, is that the effect of, you know, like Ukraine and the problem with Russia and the United States with the gas and oil, or Saudi Arabia? A lot of people really just can't figure it out right now, because I mean, it's been steadily going up even before, you know, the Ukraine incident happened, but it's went up a lot more in the last 2 weeks or so, that, you know, since this stuff started happening in Ukraine, you know. But
didn't you say
know,
earlier, money?
It is money. It all comes down to money and oil.
And you know what?
You know, we were sent, Dave. We were sent when our unit went over to Kuwait, when the oil fields were burning, when the Iraqi Republican Guards set them all on fire. One company out of Calgary, they went over there. Our unit was sent there to protect them. The American company out of Texas that was sent out there was protected by contractors. It wasn't the military. It wasn't the Marines. It sure to hell wasn't the Army. It was contractors. Right. And it was like a shit show over there, because once we get over there, did that, our unit stayed around, because they were talking about the WMDs. We never seen any. We seen the odd mortars, maybe the odd mustard gas bomb here and there, but there was nothing, you know. I think maybe every second day we had to put our gas suits on. That was it.
All of a sudden, Dick Cheney, being the father of Liz Cheney in America, has become a hero. Most of us thought he was Darth Vader, or Darth Vader was based on him. Yeah. And you wonder, Enron, the money, you know, was there really an effort somehow to convince certain people that they're weapons of mass destruction, and there were people that didn't know that were pushing it? We'll never know, I suppose. No. But it does come down to money, right? I mean, look at what his company, look at mostly it's Republican money invested in these, warriors for hire, black ops. So yeah, it's always about the money. Always about.
Sure it is. I mean, we thought when our unit went over there, and we knew there was going to be an American unit over there, we thought it would be like, you know, like maybe the 82nd Airborne, or it would have been something, you know, like a Marine unit or whatever. But no, we got to see these guys that were walking around just in basically, you know, coveralls, camouflage shirts, and everything else. But they weren't regular Army, like not dressed like we were. So,
well, Kevin, I've got to run. And you and Brian can continue a little bit. I think that would be nice, or whatever. But here's what I want to say. Anytime. It's not my show. It's Brian's show. But I'm going to use the power that I don't have. to invite you on at any time for one reason. When you're talking or I'm talking, Brian is not talking. And one of the ideas of this show is to make it good.
Yeah.
And one of these things is not like the other. One of these things just isn't the same. That's Sesame Street, but it's also true. I don't want to tell you who that is, but it looks like that dude on the left screen.
right.
Kevin, thanks. Brian,
All right.
take care. I'm out of here. You guys keep going.
All right. Well, we're
Okay,
gonna.
Dave, I'll talk to you soon, Dave.
Couple minutes.
Take care, brother.
Just so see
God
you,
bless.
Dave.
Yeah, be
See you
safe,
guys.
Dave.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Let's see what I got here. Hold on for a second, Kev. I got to set
sure.
something
Not a
up to
problem.
get from.
Don't mind me. I just got off work, Brian. I just jumped on to help you out. Sorry, I've got a beer in my hand, guys. Sorry, it was a long night. I'm telling you.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, we basically had discussed the war effort and what's going on, the ramifications. We talked about the sniper from Canada. Of course, he goes under the pseudonym of Wally. You know, he doesn't want to jeopardize anything.
No.
But and I'm sure your friends have to be careful. By the way, I mean, I don't know if you actually know or not, but are they allowed to stay together, or are they just told you have to go here or there? Or they haven't gotten a hold of them yet?
I think to what Rob told me the other night, like they left. They ended up landing in Warsaw, and then they had to grab a vehicle from Warsaw to go to the line where Poland and Ukraine hit. But I haven't talked to them. I talked to him yesterday morning at about 7 o'clock. I haven't talked to him since, so I don't know exactly if they're together or not.
Are they both assuming that their capacity is just to fight, or is it could be also delivery of food or anything like that? Is any kind of are they going to go by whatever the Ukrainians tell them?
Yeah, they'll go by what they tell them. I mean, like they're very specially skilled, so chances are they're going to be somewhere close to the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
They could be anywhere in Kiev. I don't know where they are. They don't tell me. Or
the reason why I asked, I'm just wondering because like if they needed somebody with logistics or somebody to actually do sniping and all that. I just can't imagine somebody 63 though. It's just that's brutal to have to
Well, you wouldn't expect me to try and sign up as 62
No. I told you that's like jumping out on the ice and say I'm making a comeback at 63. It's just
no.
But this is your life. I mean, this is obviously.
But you do it for and I don't know what people would say out there listening to what I'm saying, but you do it because you care about certain people, and you do it because you don't believe in what he's doing over there, and there's just not enough people, standing up. Like I know the governments are coming out and they're giving them sanctions and they're trying to say this and they're trying to take them out of SWIFT. They're doing this, but you don't think that and this is what gets me is like a buddy of mine I talked to the other day. He's not a Putin fanatic, but he believes that a lot of this stuff started back in the Tsar days and stuff. But what I think is Putin has an agenda and he knew what was coming. So you don't think that he was not protecting himself? Do you think his finances, they're just going to all of a sudden take all of his money away? You don't think the oligarchs
I think he is a nationalist, though. I think that, not a communist, but a nationalist. And I think that he does have this, whatever you want to call it, he has this feeling that, Russia's superior. Almost kind of like, somebody holds the number one foam finger, Yeah. And he felt like they've been put down, and don't forget he was in the KGB, and during the 1990s the Russian army went straight to shit, and I guess he was tired of losing in his mind. That's just, again, this is just my opinion, and I think there's an extreme jealousy for the West, and he's trying to undo what is done. That's, again, this is just one person's opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing as a lot of people say to me. They said, well, if Trump was in power, this would never happen in Ukraine. Yeah, it would. Who the hell do you think Trump was?
We got, by the way, Kevin, Veg is a fellow Canadian. As you know, we have quite a few Canadians.
I seen Veg on the other night when I was on when you guys
I think Veg is from Ontario also. He's from Windsor. Are you from Windsor, Veg? If you put it up, I'm not sure. But he just mentioned here that gas dropped a lot today, down to 165.
Yeah, 165. Yeah.
But we do get a lot of information. I think Max is from California. I think, I'm not sure, but yeah, California has a lot of taxes. $9 a gallon is a bargain because the harm is about $70 a
liter.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Look, I've seen our streets here in well, you've been here, Brian. You know what Kingston's like. We're a very small city. We're on what, 230,000.
It's a hell of a lot bigger than where I live. That's 10 times as big.
But I mean, like I've noticed in the last week or the last 10 days, because I live in the upper hub, way up by the Kingston Center. So I see all the traffic on Bath Road and Princess where they both meet, and there's been so much traffic not around anymore like it used to be. It almost reminds me of the COVID when it hit back in 2020. It's just a lot of people can't afford to drive their vehicles.
I also want to just tell you, I forget the guy's name, but there was a fellow from Kingston who was a military expert who was on the national news here, or maybe it was on the CBC News. I don't know, but they did have him on. I don't know if you know who the person was. If I knew the name, I would tell you. But anyway, it was interesting that it came from Kingston. So I think is that
he was
dog?
He was likely from CFB. He was likely from the CFB base. Because we do have the biggest poet engineering base, and we'd be one of the first ones because they train everybody in radar and everything here. So half these guys that come out of CFB.
Okay, Veg is from London.
Plus we got RMC.
You're familiar with London, right?
Oh, he's from London. Yeah, London Knights area. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think in terms of like the junior hockey teams, when I hear
so do I.
smaller
When I see
towns,
not
the big ones, obviously, but the smaller towns, I keep thinking of. Seems like the towns of your size have junior teams. Is that your dog, by the way?
Yeah, that's Lucky.
Can you bring Lucky up here or no?
Oh, do you want me to come here, Lucky?
Yeah, why not? Because
come here.
Folks, Lucky.
That's all. Come here.
Kevin saved Lucky's life. Okay, he took him in.
Look at that.
Lucky had no place to go.
Look at who's that? Is that Uncle Brian? Look.
There we go.
There's Uncle Brian.
Look at that adorable dog, and there you go.
Get your hair out of your eyes. There, now they can see your eyes. There you go, baby.
That dog is adorable. So Kevin saved that dog, by the way. So, it's our first dog guest since we've had Divided We Stand.
He looks like a mugshot. Look at him. He's got to get a haircut.
Oh, well, he's adorable.
Down you get, baby.
And I know you take care of him. So Kevin, listen, and this is for everybody. I am going to be signing off next time. Kevin, you'd like to join us again? You're always welcome, as Dave says.
I will. I'll send you a message when I have my shifts at the Global Leap, and one night you don't do it, then sure, I'd come on right from the beginning.
And
there'll be a lot of stuff.
There's so much going on right now that I wouldn't doubt more. And again, Canada seems to. I'm not just saying this because you're friends with me, but as I told you, there's a lot more involved because you have Chrystia Freeland, who has a Ukrainian background, speaks Russian, speaks Ukrainian, and is considered basically an enemy of the state of Russia too. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with all of this.
And hopefully by the next time I come on, I get some more news about my buddies. So
yeah, that would be good. Just we won't give their last names. We don't want anything to happen to them. But what I'm going to leave us with, folks, I have something that I can leave you. Kevin, I always leave them with some little video and whatnot.
Sure.
If I can find it. Oh, jeez.
I wish I had video of you and I when we played hockey and we beat your butt.
Yeah, that would be something. Too bad you don't have it, though. Okay.
No, I didn't do it. No, we didn't have cameras back then. Remember, we didn't have video back in those days.
Let me see what I have here. I know
that just shows how old we are, Bri.
Yeah, we're pretty old, aren't we, Kev?
Oh, you know it.
I know where this is. Okay, hold on for a second. If I can open this up. For God's sake. I am going to leave everybody with a movie if I can open this up for my. Okay, here we go. And this is 1990, Kevin. I have. I'll put this on Facebook, but I'll throw this up here. This is from Kiev, so I thought that would be well worth putting on.
A good parting video at the end.
Yeah, I mean. It's very touching. My grandfather was born in Kiev, so I thought that, For God's sakes. Here we go. Yeah, it would be good to show. So anyway, Kevin, thanks for coming on. This movie.
Not a problem.
Well, yeah, it's
and
a
I'll
movie.
Come back. Everybody, you guys be safe. Now they're saying here in Canada we get our masks off on the 21st. Hopefully we do, but still be safe. And I'll be back on with Brian and Dave hopefully in the next few days or next week.
We what was I going to say? Yeah, we'll be on next week. This will be about 7 minutes, Kevin. Then it just it just goes off. But this was the birthplace of my grandfather, so I got a little bit of Ukrainian blood in me. And this was 1990 when I was 30, so this Kevin would have been about 13 years after we knew each other in Canada. Yeah. All right, so here we go, and we'll see you.
And I will talk to you soon, Brian.
See you, Kev.
Yeah.